Hello, I'm football commentator Derek Ray, and you're listening to the FUT Weekly Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to week 28 of the FUT Weekly Podcast. This is a gameplay episode, and I'm excited to be joined by, first of all, Josh Excels. Hello, Josh. How are you doing?
Yeah, good to be here. We know who the teams are at the World Cup now, so that's what happened last night. And Italy got knocked out on pens by Bosnia after celebrating that Bosnia had won on pens to get through to the game against them. So that felt slightly just.
Yeah, and interestingly, someone was saying that Italy last won a knockout World Cup game in like the noughties or something crazy like that, which is there's amazing.
Only been 4 players born in Italy that have played in a World Cup in the last 10 years, and they're all for different nations. They haven't played for Italy. Donnarumma was the Italy goalkeeper at 17 and still hasn't played in a World Cup and won't do until he's 35.
Wow,
it's mad.
That is wild. Right, on that, we should introduce NepentheZ. Hello, good to have you back.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. Becoming a bit of a common occurrence now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nice. No, I mean, we had a content episode, so good to have you on gameplay, and we can talk a bit about that. We had 𝗵𝗽𝗀𝗀𝗀𝘀, aka Jason, on last week, and it was actually also his first appearance on the podcast for 𝘵𝚻𝗻𝘀, and this is your first appearance on a gameplay episode. So I guess we maybe just start off by asking sort of like top level thoughts on gameplay overall this cycle, and kind of you could talk a bit about how, I know we talked a bit about the sort of the early stages of 𝘵𝚻𝗻𝘀 and how the game changed since then, but I guess like anything you want to kind of say about gameplay, get on a soapbox for a bit.
I don't mind it. I don't think it's the worst it's ever been, but I think the things that are the worst in the game are the worst that they've ever been. So I think like Bruiser being that broken is that bad. I think there's certain passing mechanics, especially like the first time through balls and the double tap passes that EA supposedly fixed that they definitely haven't. I think are the worst they've ever been. There's like so many undefendable things that it then forces people into allowing the AI to defend for them, which then creates the world that we've got in what I think is like a really terrible FIFA. And I think there's just a few tiny tweaks that are needed to bring the game to a level where it's good, maybe even very good. But, maybe a tweak to Bruiser exposes something else that's done broken, who knows? But I don't think it's bad, but the worst bits are the worst they've ever been.
So do you think, I mean, it's funny, you changed your name. Actually, this doesn't carry through to the like actual exported video, but we can see it. He's changed his name to Top 100 NepentheZ, which I rudely joked before we recorded the squad battle. I don't know. I guess what kind of level have you kind of got? Have you been pushing, I guess, this cycle in terms of like competitiveness? Or I feel like a lot of people haven't, because frankly, there's just so much to do. There isn't as much need for it. But obviously, you're a creator, so you spend quite a bit of time on the game. So maybe it's more possible for you to do that. Like, have you tried it? Is that kind of what you mean when it's like really like you're seeing those exploited mechanics? Is that something you kind of just get to once you push up the ranks?
Well, so I'm just shy of Division 1. I'm like two rungs off of Division 1. And I haven't played Rivals much at all, just when I literally needed to for R9 and for a few other bits and bobs to get some stuff done. And when I have played Champs this year, it's been 9 or 10 wins. But there is a bit of an asterisk to that, because I've been giving away wins to keep my form low on purpose to kind of do it. But that's probably even if I didn't give away the wins, I'm probably around that sort of like 10 win, maybe 11 win range anyway. I don't know if that's considered good or bad or not, but I think for me, the test of skill comes from, can you get perfect round in Gauntlet? Can you win those tournaments, especially like the more hardcore ones? I thought the Knockout Royalty was brilliant, and I managed to win all of those. There was one thing, there was a few things recently where I didn't even try, like the thing for the winger, was it Barbo or whoever it was? I didn't even play that. There was just so much going on in the game in that week. I just didn't do it. And then the more recent one this week, I went and got like 7 wins to only 2 losses in that first thing. So I'm in like the key tournament there, and I saw 𝑧 won it. So I thought, if he's won it, can't be hard, right? It can't be hard. But I think they're a better test for skill, genuinely, because I don't think people take Champs or Rivals seriously. And so I don't play at an extremely high level. I'd say I'm like quite a high level. I don't really see the broken game mechanics too often from my opponents unless I just randomly match someone insane. And like last week, I matched a Polish pro and I only lost him in extra time. And then when 𝘵𝘊𝘀𝘀 was editing the RTG, he told me that I'd beaten a competitive player in one of the tournaments that I was playing, and I didn't even know, and I absolutely like wiped the floor with him, and that made me feel really good. So I think I played to a high standard. Like there's nothing I don't win in life at friendlies, and I'm decent in rivals and champs. So yeah, pretty good. But there is I think this year for the first time in a long time, I think there's a really clear difference between your exceptional players and then everybody else. Like the exceptional players are just so good. And I don't necessarily mean pros or competitive players, but there's just a few guys that are in and around elite division or like those sort of 14, 15-0 champs guys. And they're a different breed. Like they have mastered every broken mechanic and you just can't stop it.
On that, what do you think's giving rise to? Because it seems to happen quite often when we get a new live event. You'll see people going, like, this is insane. The players I'm matching are insane. Like, matchmaking's broken. What do you think's giving rise to that? Do you think when people are playing in rivals or in champs, they're matching against worse players by and large, and actually they're being matched against people that are more around their skill level? Or do you think it's just that the different matchmaking in each of the modes is causing people to like have very different experiences depending on the mode they're playing in?
Yeah, I think there's a few things, isn't there? I think first of all, the value for your time and effort in FUT friendlies is so much better than champs and rivals that when those things come out, everyone rushes to them. So like, yeah, all the hardcores are going there straight away. They want it day one, minute one. Like they want those rewards straight away. But I also just think the rewards are so much better than champs and rivals. So why would you play champs or rivals not knowing what you're going to get? Where even with like the gauntlet reward, you know for sure 14 games maximum if you can't win 7, and you've got all of those insane rewards. And in champs, you could play 14 games, and if you only won 4 or 5 because you're not very good, first of all, you'd have to play a 15th to get your rewards. But second of all, the rewards return is just terrible, like by comparison. And in rivals, you could literally play 15 games of rivals and not have a point attributed to your rewards. So I think
its way again.
Yeah, it's just in its way again. But I genuinely just think live at friendlies is the best value for time. So I think people go there a lot. But I also think, I was watching Pieface. He's kind of quit his RTG. He's quit FIFA altogether, pretty much. He's not forever. He wants a better game, and so he's not playing it until he sort of like gets what he wants out of the game. But something he said was like so true. Like when he plays champs, he knows he's going to get 7 or 8 wins. That's just his level. Sometimes he gets 9, but in every game that he plays, he either smashes his opponent or gets battered, and there's no in between. And I think because of the way the matchmaking works, and I feel like it doesn't work. I feel like it is just a crapshoot in champs as to, you could be 7-0 and match somebody who's maybe 5-2, but that 5-2 might have matched way lesser skilled players. So now all of a sudden you've got a really easy game at 7-0. Alternatively, you could be 5-2 matching someone who's 7-0 and absolutely insane and have an incredibly hard game at 5-2. Like, so I think the matchmaking of friendlies, the seeded matchmaking specifically in the tournaments, I really like. The form-based matchmaking in friendlies, I really don't like. I think they should be perhaps completely random.
And so to kind of completely change tack, what in terms, because you're saying like you feel like you're quite high level, and I'd say you're a very good player.
Yeah.
What would be like your biggest? Is there anything like you've learned this year specifically from this game that is your go-to tip for someone if they're trying to improve?
So, like, this is going to sound so weird, right? Like a couple of weeks ago, I did a video where I kind of watched my own gameplay back, and I was appalled at how bad I was. Like, man, the amount of blindly obvious things I missed, I couldn't believe it. Like, obviously, it's a lot easier to watch from that sort of like bird's eye view of I'm not in the moment and playing, and so I can really see the mistakes. But it was alarming. I was like, Jesus Christ, this is like terrible. And the one tip that I got that I've started like adding into my game now that I think has been super valuable is to stop looking at the ball carrier. Like, okay, sometimes you're going to get pressed and you're going to then need to kind of see that and whatever, but you kind of know generally how much time and how much space you've got with the ball carrier. And so instead I started looking at the next pass almost, like almost like chess moves. I started looking at the pass ahead or pass 2 passes ahead. And that really helped me with not only actually finding forward passes that allowed me to create a lot more goal scoring opportunities, because I didn't dilly-dally on the ball, lose possession and get countered. Instead, I was finding those gaps and having chances myself. But the other thing it helped me do is like really spot where players weren't, which allowed me to put them in the position with the player runs. And I think that's the skill gap that I need to improve on a lot, is getting those players running forwards. I started doing that the last week or two, and I've actually started using the directional player runs, where I've like sent someone on a run, then sent them into a different position, and then
How do you do that?
So you press L1 to send them on a run, then use a right analog stick to choose which direction you want, like immediately after. And like I sent in the gauntlet, I sent R9 on a run, then sent him like right to peel away towards the back post, then played the incisive, inventive pass around the corner, and he scored it. And I was like, that's it. Like I can retire now. I've done it. But it really helped me, and I think it would help anybody to just stop looking at the ball carrier, stop getting zoned in on the guy that's on the ball, because then you're relying on either muscle memory or just a general understanding of hoping that the players that you want to be in the right place are in the right place when you make a blind pass or just make a pass. Whereas if you're looking at that next pass, the only kind of thing you have to worry about with the ball carrier is A, did they have the capability to do the pass that you want, and B, have they been pressed quicker than you've seen the pass to pass it? And that elevated my gameplay like significantly.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who's played like football will have heard the phrase like get their head down, and like you basically, by putting pressure on someone, force them to think about dribbling the ball rather than looking at where to pass it. And I think that is actually true in FC to an extent as well. Like you need to, but I guess to flip it around so that you're the one on the ball, if you're just concentrating on dribbling the ball, you're just massively limiting your options. And as soon as you kind of get your head up essentially and start to like look at the options, then it makes a big difference in terms of the chances you're creating. It's interesting actually, because I think we talked about this a bit on the podcast before, Josh, but there is definitely a thing which I've heard a few people say, that actually people say the defensive AI is very good, but actually when you just leave the defensive AI to do its thing, but actually it might be more that the attacking AI isn't great. And I think that is what Nep's pointing out there in terms of this sort of directed runs and things like that. Like you see at the pro level, player locks all the time, like those sorts of things are kind of crucial if you want to kind of hit that next level, because actually I think as much as people complain about the defensive AI being good, I think attacking AI being bad is probably a big part of that.
Yeah, I'd just caution and say, like, I think, yes, whilst you do see player locks at a high level, and that tends to be how they attack, and the directed runs is definitely important, there are lots of people who do very well without doing any of those things, and that's because they understand the attacking pattern that their team and their formation's creating, and they know the moves that they can create with just normal 1-2 through balls or just normal passing around, because they know how to manipulate where your opponent's trying to put pressure on. So although it is very useful, I don't think it's like an absolute must. It might help you, but you're going to go through a lot of pain learning how to kind of do all the kind of directed stuff. And hey, the first time I switched off the player who's controlling the ball, my brain absolutely
it does break your brain.
Yeah, I could not. Where am I going? I don't understand. So I think it's quite a steep learning curve to that, and actually understanding like the fundamentals of the shapes you want to create when you're attacking, how you can exploit certain areas. I think the directed runs is the easier way to do that, because you're not having to go and grab a player and run them to where you need to go. You just kind of go in, run in this general area because that's where I think you need to go. It's definitely easier than player locking, because I can't player lock to save my life. But I think that I do think defensive AI is strong. And I agree with you that attacking AI is poor, but I think when people talk about defensive AI, I don't think they necessarily mean like the tracking or the kind of way that the players mark. It's more about how active they are in terms of pressing and tackling and blocking and like performing actions near the ball carrier rather than away from the ball carrier. There's plenty of ways you can manipulate the AI. I mean, if the AI was super good positionally, you wouldn't be able to do the kind of send your fullback on a run and then just bang a long ball over the top and they're in 20 yards of space. Like, you wouldn't be able to do that if the defensive AI was strong. So there is there's a precision that's needed, I think, when we're talking about like what's strong in terms of the AI. But yeah, that thing about attacking patterns. Makes it very difficult when you change formations. Like, I'm really interested to see this 3-5-2 tournament that's coming, like how people are going to adapt to that, because the way you attack is very, very different. I think all of us, we might not think about it, but we all have an out ball from defense that we like playing. And the more you play with the formation, the more you know where you can play that out ball. It might be out to a winger because you know they're always in space, or a midfielder, or your cam because you know they're sat not being marked. And sometimes you'll play someone with a different formation to what you're used to. Instead of a 4-4-1-1, it'll be a 4-1-4-1. And that DM is suddenly stood on your cam and you're like, well, I can't get out because your out ball's always being blocked. So there are patterns you've already got in your head that you just don't realize. And I think in attack, learning how to manipulate them to create space, to create opportunities, to have a chance just to put your opponent on the back foot because they have to go and mark this run, otherwise you've got an easy through ball. That will help you a lot more, I think, in the kind of short term and over the long term, building that base up before you just try and learn to play a lock, because play a lock is great, but only used in the right moment at the right kind of position.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. Also, I think I feel like one of the reasons people don't like player lock or kind of struggle initially learning it is because it's actually quite an awkward, physically, it's quite an awkward thing to do. I wish they would think about that a bit and change it to something that's a bit more logical, or a bit easier to trigger. Like, you can so easily accidentally pop the ball up or do something kind of silly if you just slightly mistime the double press. You have to press them at the same time, and it also you're obviously moving constantly in the game, so pressing in the sticks is like an awkward thing to do because it's kind of hard to press it when you're going a direction. But I mean the game is so poor. It is, and there's so many mechanics actually, or so many different options things you can do with those buttons. Actually, it is quite hard to for them to remap them to something more logical potentially. But if they allow more customization, they do allow you to switch buttons around, but they don't allow you to directly map a particular action, like player lock, to a button. It has to be moving the actual buttons around, which is a little bit not ideal. Anyway. I was actually going to, because I wanted to mention that 3-5-2 tournament, I was going to ask if either of you, actually I kind of know the answer for Josh, have played three at the back formations, and whether there was a kind of particular way that you'd encourage people to set up. I'm thinking particular roles, I guess, things like that maybe have kind of been good for you when you've played three at the back formations. I don't know about you, Nep, so maybe we come to you first. Is it something you've tried?
Yeah, I tried it right at the start. So one of my viewers, his name's Ollie, and he works for VAR. He's not allowed to VAR Arsenal games, otherwise we might have got a decision or two. But it's always funny when he plays because when I talk to him, because he just gets grief in my chat for working in VAR.
I think you might be a listener to the podcast. Actually,
yeah, maybe.
If he's
well, he used to be a content creator, like NoBots, his name was.
Oh, NoBots. Yeah. That rings about it.
At the start of this year, he was waxing lyrical about 𝘃𝑗, and he had 𝘃𝑗 up front, and he played in a 3-5-2 because there's a huge issue with crossing where it kind of goes to the wide midfielder. If you play a 4-4-2 or something and you cross with your left mid, 9 times out of 10, no matter what you do really, especially if it's from an out wide cross, it will land at the right mid rather than one of the strikers. But he found that with the 3-5-2, the crosses landed at the strikers rather than on the other wide mid, maybe because the formation's a little bit wider, that the strikers maybe are a bit more wider with the cam or whatever, I don't know. But I saw some of his goals. He sent me some of his goals on PlayStation. And I was it was just awesome. Just watching a ball floating and then 𝘃𝑗 just hitting a bicycle kick or just towering over someone for a header. And so I tried the 3-5-2 then, and I have a real bad habit of selecting a centre back and running towards the ball. And when you've only got 3 defenders, you cannot afford to do that. And so I very quickly switched back into a 4 at the back because it's just not for me.
Yeah, I have a similar thing with 3 at the back. I do like it, but it just slightly requires me to adapt and be a bit more thoughtful in my defending, which is not really my strong suit. So yeah, I kind of agree. But I have played it in the past. But I know, Josh, you were using the 3-4-2-1 for a bit, right? So yeah, what would you if you're doing a 3-5-2, what kind of roles would you be going with?
Most important thing when you're running a 3-back is that your 2 outside centre backs have to be on wide back. If you don't run them on wide back, effectively that role has been added to the game specifically for the 3-back formation, so that centre-backs in a three-back formation don't look ridiculous. We were talking about defensive AI being positionally strong earlier. If you don't run them on wide-back, you'll be quickly disavowed of that notion because they just run all over the place. Wide-back kind of keeps them more in a back three and doesn't allow them to try and kind of mark wingers until they absolutely have to. And so you kind of maintain that shape in the middle. Really, it's about a balance, I think, with the three-back formation. There's a temptation to think that because you're running three at the back, you can have an extra body in attack. And whilst that is true, because of how strong counters are, you're going to have less players defensively, so you need to be careful more with how you set up the midfield. Now, obviously, I use the 3-4-2-1 rather than 3-5-2. It's easy to be a little bit more defensively solid with the 3-5-2 because you've got DMs instead of CMs, so all of the roles can be less inclined to go forward. But really, I think it's the wide players that are the important thing because, and I think this also links to wide back. If you don't have the centre backs on wide back, the wide players won't drop with the rest of the team. They'll play more as wingers. So you need to have the centre-backs on wide back out wide, and then at least one of your wide players as a wide midfielder probably support. And then that will mean that you can kind of shift into a fullback if you go and grab that right mid, but will drop you more into a 5 the deeper you get, because even if you play the other one on a winger, they like to stay at a similar kind of level defensively, and so they'll tend to drop together. So for me, it's more about kind of making sure you're happy with where you're setting up defensively, because in attack, you will have different options than what people are used to. So the 3-4-2-1, I think, was strong because of the 2-1. Having two cams and a striker allowed you to do a lot of different things in your attacking movement that people weren't used to at all. And especially with the prevalence of the full-backs formations, you can effectively have 3 against the 2 centre-backs in the middle, and that causes real issues, which I think is why we've seen 4-3-2-1 has had a bit of love recently. I think for quite a similar reason. Only one of the cams was on Shadow Striker. I think the other one was on Playmaker, because you do want someone to drop a little bit to receive the ball in that front line. Otherwise, it can be a little bit like you're constantly just trying to bang a ball behind a defense, and that can be quite difficult. And then, having a kind of balanced midfield. So whether that be, I think initially I was running deep lying Playmaker defend with a box-to-box balanced. You could run box-to-box holding. You get a little bit more kind of defensive AI movement on that. They kind of really harry people in the middle if you do that. But yeah, so I think it's about you can, as I say, you can look at a 3-back and go, okay, this is just full-on attack. Let's get everyone moving forward. But actually, you do need help, and you do need to defend slightly differently, because as Nep said, if you grab a centre-back and sprint them out, there's not the same cover that there is if you've got 4 players defensively.
Yeah, that makes sense. Right, well, I think we'll come back and talk a little bit more about the game as a whole after we've taken this break. Back in a second. Hello, and in this break, a quick reminder that the pod is made possible by supporters. The pod didn't used to be weekly. Yes, Foot Weekly wasn't actually weekly for a time. And then someone suggested setting up the Patreon. And since then, the pod has been weekly. And in fact, it's been twice weekly, because there is that supporter episode every single week. So if you'd like to catch that episode and keep the podcast going, it's just £3 a month to do so, and you get loads in return. And there are perks higher than that, including access to the Discord too. So if you're interested and would like to support the podcast, then head over and search Support for Weekly. Go to Patreon, and it's very easy to sign up. If you are a supporter keeping the podcast going, then a huge thank you for doing so. And if you do consider supporting, a huge thank you too. Right, let's jump back into the pod. Hello, welcome back after the break. So, something I wanted to come back to, because we also talked about it last week, is Bruiser and Sealouts. And I think you were talking about, Bruiser net being overpowered. I guess what we were questioning last week is whether we felt it was actually just Bruiser being overpowered or just Sealouts being really strong. And I guess the criticism I had, and I'd be interested if you agree, the reason why, I think I always get the names confused, but the reason why tactical defending was introduced as a sort of necessary thing in online is because previously you used to be able to just hold the tackle button and your player would kind of heat-seeking missile directly at the ball, and it would be quite easy to win it. Interestingly, you can kind of still do that if you hold Y or triangle with your goalkeeper and just charge a keeper out, because they also heat-seeking missile. But yeah, the point was that was removed. And now you have those two different versions, which we talked about before. You have advanced defending and tactical defending. Tactical defending is the one where it will choose whether you seal out or not contextually, or if you tackle. And then advanced defending is where you choose whether you're going to seal out with X or tackle with B, or whatever the PlayStation equivalents are. So, I've hybrided them there, I think. So it's seal out with A, tackle with B, or seal out with X, tackle with circle. You can tell I switched part like a couple of years ago. And I guess, the point of this conversation is basically like, do we think that actually those kind of seal out tackles are like too strong, I guess, or too consistent, even with perhaps without Bruiser and Bruiser Plus, and we're essentially going back to a kind of less skilled defensive style as a result of that?
Yeah, I think Bruiser is, I think it's stupidly overpowered, but there is a level of skill to it as well, because you can't just press it. First of all, you kind of have to hold it, but also you have to be in the vicinity of the player. So if you're just sprinting at someone and then hammering X or A to try and seal them out, you're just going to have a bad time, and like you're going to get done. So it's not a casuals mechanic. But if you're good defensively, if you're patient in defense and you do wait for those Bruiser opportunities, or if you're like, if somebody's played a through ball through and you're just kind of both running towards the ball and then a defender hits Bruiser, the attacker gets knocked off their feet. And it reminded me actually of Enforcer at the start of the game cycle. I loved Enforcer in the early days, because when you pressed L2 to like initiate Enforcer, they would like fully the players would get shoved off 4 or 5 yards. And Bruiser is exactly the same, but the other way around. And for EA to completely obliterate Enforcer but not touch Bruiser was a bit interesting. But as you were talking about it there, it made me think, I wonder if, because I never use Enforcer anymore, but I wonder if Enforcer is a counter to Bruiser. And I've seen a lot of SBCs recently that have had Enforcer as a base playstyle. And I wonder if EA know and are telling us, they're waiting for the kind of like the explosion within the community of, oh, hold on, Bruiser's OP, but actually we've got a counter here. So I'll say it with a bit of an asterisk, but I think Bruiser is crazy broken and needs nerfing, unless when I go and test it now after this pod, Enforcer is a really good counter to it, and all of a sudden my big men and my big paw 𝘠𝘠 is going to become a bit of a beast.
Well, I think, it is interesting, because just sort of what we were talking about last week, which was on the supporter gameplay episode, so I guess not everyone catching this may have caught that, but I think what we were kind of saying is actually, if you have a physical enough centre-back who has Bruiser, like regular, is still really overpowered. Like, as long as you have the physical advantage, whether that's through like the player's strength, aggression, Bruiser Plus, like as long as you have that physical advantage over the attacker, you're going to be able to do the seal out and you're going to win the ball. And it's when the player is more physical, like I evolved that 𝘭𝘪𝑬𝘠𝑗, so he's gone through, I mean, he's like really strong, but he also went through Birthday Benito, so he's quite good on the ball. But I added Enforcer base to him, and I noticed that like generally, especially if the player doesn't have Bruiser Plus, the centre back's going to really struggle to do the seal out. Not so much from like the side, but like when they're coming from sort of more behind. And it's even with Bruiser Plus, it's pretty rare that they manage to win the ball if you time your LT shielding like correctly. And I think that's just something to like point out to people that like are getting frustrated with the sort of seal out meta, Josh. Like, you can actually counter it, and I think even with like less physical players, if you have Enforcer base, certainly if you have the plus, like you can actually get away with it. And the meta has been so much to use these like really small agile players, so people probably aren't like thinking about the fact that they could switch to Enforcer. And it's even something like, I feel like, Josh, even at the pro level, like you don't see people countering it. They want that like small responsive type of player, so they don't really tend to look for the kind of physical players to hold off defenders.
And I mean, I'll go in reverse order of the points you've made, but I do think, And I know we have a lot of people on this podcast who are more pro oriented, because I think there is things you can learn from them. But I think hard focusing on what pros do and what pros don't do can sometimes push people down the wrong path for their own gameplay, for like how they want to play and what actually works for them. I will say, I've been talking about Enforcer, I think it's probably like the 5th or 6th week in a row now. Like, it has been the counter to Bruiser the whole time. And there's a thing in gameplay, I think you mentioned it, Ned, but you might have co-opted it from somewhere else, which is that idea of like, you want the rock, paper, scissors effect in gameplay. If your opponent plays rock, if I play paper, I should be able to win that. And the things that are broken is when there's no counter. It's when someone just refuses to play the game properly and says they won. And like, I think that's where people don't want to try something outside of what has been the broken thing. And the broken thing has been fast, agile, small players that have, low driven or finesse shot with rapid and quick step, and that they can kind of burst past your defenders. And now those big defenders have been given the tools to go, no, I'm a big defender, I'll just push you off the ball. They're like, well, this is broken. Well, maybe, but if you've got a big attacker who can go, well, you're not going to push me off the ball, actually, you can hold on to it. And you'd be shocked how quickly people will stop trying to bruise you off the ball if the first 5 times they do it, they don't win the ball back. And like that's, for me, I think trying things out has been what you've needed to do this year. I think with a lot of the kind of broken stuff, there is usually some counter to it. So yeah, for me, Enforcer's been something I'm not actively like, oh, I don't want Enforcer. In fact, quite a few times in the past few playstyle rankings, I've gone, you could go with this or you can go with Enforcer, because it is one of those that I think you'll use. I think it's similar with Press Proven as well. Press Proven gives you a little bit of ability to take contact without immediately losing the ball. I think I would probably go Press Proven on a smaller player who's maybe a bit weaker, because their benefit's going to be, can they take a little bit of contact but then burst away from a defender? Whereas Enforcer's like, actually, no, I want this contact because I'm strong and I can hold you off and I can just roll you with it. So yeah, I would definitely encourage people to try Enforcer, in like try shielding. How many people receive the ball in shield to try and kind of get past a Bruiser tackle? And there was something that Nep said, which the tips that have been given about how to utilize Bruiser and seal outs has been to tap it, because you can engage it over and over and over again, and eventually one of them's going to work. But that the kind of broken one is when people are like pushing through the back of you, and for that you do tend to need to hold it a little bit longer than just a tap, because they'll do a little bit but they won't be able to seal out because the ball's too far away from them. And it's those kinds of tackles, I think, that feel broken. If you're side by side, a strong defender should be able to just nudge you off the ball, because that's realistic, right? That's what happens.
And they would if they were using the tackle button, right? Like in those situations. And I think actually, like, one of the things that sort of frustrates me more about it than those situations where you get kind of like physically overpowered is when someone is essentially kind of using it as like a way to tackle without risk. So they're kind of like, you're more faced up to the defender's more faced up to the attacker, and they're like spamming it in that situation, and that's where I'm like, you're basically meaning that you don't have the risk of making a tackle, because you basically can't foul with it, and yet you're able to just keep trying and trying and trying, and that's when I think it feels frustrating. Like, those are the situations where like the game should require you to tackle, essentially. That's the thing that I think frustrates me most about it. But yeah, it's interesting in terms of, I guess if people are going to try this, I would think about it like with the spamming of the button. You kind of like imagine you're like sort of you're requesting the seal out repeatedly, and what you need to do is identify when you are actually going to get it, and then you hold it, if that makes sense. So like you spam, and don't like over spam it, but just like spam, and then you're like, oh, okay, the player's going to go in for the seal out now, so I can kind of press and hold it and win the ball. But yeah, like I think it is a bit of a, it's just it does take skill, I think, right? Like it does take a bit of practice. And I said, like, it is easy. I think it's easier than you think, because when you first start using it, it's like, oh, this feels really weird. But it is easier than you think, but it still requires like a bit of practice and a bit of getting used to it. It's not as hard as learning something like precision shooting, though, if you've never done that before, for example. Yes.
I think a lot of the pros and top end players have actually turned off precision shooting this year.
Do they not need it for competitive anymore?
I just think that your risk for error, or their risk for error, is greater than just using assisted shooting. I was talking to one of the guys I play clubs with, and he goes 15-0 every weekend, and he doesn't use assisted shooting whatsoever. And I said to him, like, you're crazy, like, it's so much better. So he turned it on, like, started taking a few losses because he was missing chances he was otherwise scoring. And that might be like maybe trying to learn it or whatever. But then a few of the other guys that I play clubs with that are really high level Ultimate Team players were also like, nah, like, it's got to be assisted. So I started watching some of the top end players, and a lot of them have it switched off.
That's interesting. I think the prevalence of finesse is a big factor for me. Like, I think there's something like a lot. Like, finesse plus is so consistent, like, and it's the main way people are scoring even at high levels. Like, a lot of shots are finesse shots, and so I kind of, and also like, yeah, I'd say finesse shots also 𝗪𝘳𝘀, right? But like, you're not needing to kind of like, you're not getting as much benefit from aiming because your shots are already so good, I think. So it's probably why, and also shooting from distance kind of easier, I think.
Yeah,
with assisted.
I will say for me, like, I think the way that they've done precision shooting, they either need to decide to go whole hog with it or not have it at all. Like, make it so that rivals and champs, you have to have it on. Or don't have it at all. Like, I think this kind of halfway house, the pros have to use it, but they don't want to use it. Like, either make everybody do it or don't. Otherwise, it's kind of, you're in this weird thing where I think for certain top-end players, it's easier for them to just choose a corner rather than to actually have to aim the shot. But I think the game would benefit from actually having to aim rather than, like, you know, we've spoken about it a lot. And hey, I played on full manual. It is not manual. Like, precision shoot is not manual. You can miss, absolutely, but it's nowhere close to manual. So for me, I think we're now at a bit of an inflection point, I think, because Nep is right. There's been a lot of players who've turned it off this year, having used it last year. They're the ones who I'm more interested in, because I think if you turn on precision shooting, take a couple of losses and go, well, it's crap, I'm going back. You need to give it like a month to really know if it's better or not, because it is a completely different way of shooting.
I think the issue with it this year, though, is that, like, you know, last year power shots were incredible, and actually for the last 3 or 4 years power shots were incredible, from range especially. And last year precision shooting helped massively with power shots. EA killed that this year. But this year you've got low driven finesses, low driven 𝗪𝘳𝘀, you've got the near post 𝗪𝘳𝘀, finesse shots, the like power shots or like shots across the goal. There are actually like a significant amount more ways of just scoring, and with keeper movement gone now as well, or for the most part gone, you don't need that extra edge to score because there are already multiple ways of scoring without it. I might have to turn it off.
Yeah, no, I think the keep movement thing, we didn't mention that until then. I think it's a really good point. Like, I remember one of the reasons why I thought it was really good is because it would just like kill people who tried to move their keeper, because you could just like blast it past them a lot of the time. Like, you didn't have to consider it as much in your thinking when you're shooting, and also weirdly, like, just having the like ability to like I don't know, not just aim for the, well, actually it makes sense, but not just aim for the corners. Like, often you beat the keeper just blasting it, not even that far away from them. Like, you know, it definitely helped in terms of the shot power you generate, which also helps beating a keeper that's moving. There's lots of like reasons like why it's good for keeper movement, and now people hardly move the keeper, if at all. Like, I think most people aren't moving the keeper. You see it sometimes. Like, I still move the keeper a little bit, and it does help, but it's not something I do that much. And then yeah, like, just as you said, like, the number of like different shot options you have, the fact, and I think the big thing is now everyone has the playstyles and playstyle pluses. Like, early on in the cycle, I think there was probably more benefit, because I remember in the first couple of months being like, I'm actually like we only have limited playstyles, and actually I can sort of not prioritize the shooting playstyles as much because I use precision, because like I'm going to have an advantage shooting, and so you are getting an advantage off that even if it's not as obvious. But now it's like, you know, all my forwards have got like finesse plus finesse, at least the base finesse playstyle, low driven, etc. So I think, yeah, it's probably like less necessary. But I would say, like, if something you're doing and you're effective at it, I'm not sure how much of an advantage you're going to get by turning it off, if you know what I mean. And you might just be causing yourself a problem further down the line, like going into next cycle, for example. You might be worse at the beginning of the cycle as a result. So it's probably one of those things that just like, if you can do it and you enjoy it, like, just keep doing it. It's not really a great reason.
I've maintained throughout, like, I like it because I enjoy it. It makes me feel better when I score a goal, because I'm like, I did that. Rather than kind of, the game did that because I pointed it in the right direction. Like, so I it's definitely It's definitely much more of like a personal preference. I enjoy doing it than I feel like it's given me a massive advantage this year.
Yeah, exactly. I think there were times in the past where we'd be on this podcast being like, you've got to try it if you haven't, like, absolutely. Like, and I'd still say from an enjoyment perspective, I would still argue that. But I think from a sort of like
Advanced
efficiency.
defending's the setting you should turn on if you've not had it turned on. That's the one to learn right now.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, interesting. Actually, this kind of brings up a good question. Are there any other sort of more mechanical things, Nep, that you're like, oh, if you're not doing this, I would recommend it? I'm trying to think how many other things are on the
one
game.
thing I wanted to talk about today, when Josh asked me to come on the pod, one thing I want to talk about is the big man meta. I think it is incredibly underutilized. And I actually want to circle all the way back to something we was talking about before. Josh mentioned it a little bit about changing formations. Nobody changes formations in games anymore. There's two types of players that I play against on a whole. Somebody that will lose possession of the ball, switch into a DM, and then just let you do what you want. And then somebody that will press you manually and you'll have to like pass around them. And I really like the people that press me manually because I feel like I have enough skills and enough like tools in the box to beat the press, create an opportunity and score a goal. Unless they're like high level, I struggle, even if they're the worst player, I struggle against people that just switch into their DM and let the game do the work. As like yesterday, I was 3-0 down in a gauntlet game and I was getting so triggered because I'm like, this guy just won't touch his defenders. So I subbed on 𝘭𝘪𝘬𝘀𝘁.
Hey.
And I was like, if he's not going to touch his defenders, I'm just going to put Paul at left mid. I'm just literally just walked down the right wing. He didn't get anywhere near me, flipped it to the back post, headed it in. And I'm like, I need to recognize a lot quicker when somebody's playing one way versus the other way so that I could take advantage of it. But I also need formation changes for when somebody's playing one way versus the other. And it leads me to the big man meta. I think people are missing a wild trick. I think the cutoff point as well is 6'6", but Paul's 6'7", so is Peter Crouch. The way they leap above defenders, I don't care who you've got, I don't care what broken Evo you've got or anything, with really high strength, really high aggression, 99 jumping and heading that Paul's got, precision header plus. I put him through a few Evos as well, so he's like technically brilliant, 5-star, 5-star. But the way he leaps, like when we talk about Bruiser and that big seal out and that big push, and then at the start of the game, Enforcer that really push people, he moves people out of the way to leap above them, and it is brilliant fun. So I put whip pass plus player on the right hand side. I used the FUT birthday cards to do that. I put 𝘵𝘂𝘴𝘂 and a few of the other right wingers with whip pass plus, and I used 𝘭𝘪𝘬𝘀𝘁 at left mid, off chem, like just with how he comes, and I scored an insane amount of headers. And I really encourage people to try the big man meta, try Peter Crouch up front, try any kind of 6'6", 6'7", 6'8" striker you've got, and just cross the ball to them. And like if it's a whip cross, you can do it from wide to wide, so you need like your left mid or your right mid to be extremely tall. But if you get into the box, the L1 cross just kind of lifts it enough that Paul, he jumps over the keeper, like the keepers aren't tall enough, and it is brilliant fun. And it beats those people that just let the AI do the defending, because the AI can't stop it, they can't defend it. And I'm genuinely a bit shocked it's not become more popular in the community.
That's interesting. And you were saying, so if we're thinking about this player that people might want to have on the bench to sub on, or maybe they want two players, right? If they don't have a player with whipped plus, you want player with whipped plus?
From wide, you need whip plus, otherwise the crosses just aren't accurate enough. But from in the box, the L1 cross, you don't even need anything. Like anyone will do it, yeah. So
you're kind of looking at a player who can come on with whipped plus. Maybe they'd also ideally have like rapid plus or something, I don't know. So you can get a bit of, or maybe you're doing it from deeper than that and it doesn't really matter. What would you say for that player?
Yeah, I think it doesn't really matter, because it's more about your opponent's behavior, and because they're not kind of tracking you, they're just covering the passing lanes. You get the space you need to see it. Like the inventive cross is quite good, but like where the 18-yard line is, if you imagine that line went all the way across the box, like all the way across the whole field, just kind of anywhere in and around that area, you whip it in, but you've got to get enough power. And this is where like the formation is a problem, and why the 3-5-2 tournament could be quite interesting, because it doesn't, like whipped crosses from out wide don't connect to strikers. They just don't. Even if there's only strikers in the box, it will just fly off to the other side and just go out of play. At least I haven't found a way to connect them. Maybe somebody that watching has has found like the trigger points to make it work, which is why I play 𝘭𝘪𝘬𝘦 at left mid, because he's just there. But I had to set him to. I tried first of all as inside forward attack, but then he kind of occupied the position of a striker, and so the ball would go over him. So then I tried inside forward balanced, and that was a lot better. But then I put him on, I think it's wide midfielder attack, and that was the sweet spot of like, okay, he's always in that zone where the whip cross is absolutely banging for him. But yeah, I would suggest have a second formation, like a 4-4-2 if you don't already play it, or a 4-4-1-1. Have a big man that you can bring on one wing and a whip pass that you can bring on the other wing, and then maybe a big man that you can put a striker anyway, so that if you do get into the box, you can just do the little dinked lofted ball, and you'll score loads of goals against people that don't want to defend.
And then are you using this? I remember, Josh, you were talking about using the LT and RT buttons to, like, as the ball's coming in, to sort of like it almost disconnect you slightly from the ball. Is the super cancel? Is that why it works?
No, it's a forced header, so it forces
the
player to interact
yeah.
with the ball as a header. It's not totally necessary because you're going to win the ball either way in the air. That's more if you've got a player who's maybe not got precision header or isn't quite as tall. That because you kind of get a better leap because they don't have to decide at the last moment. They kind of like take a running jump at it.
Makes sense. So yeah, you can do that. But also I was thinking, yeah, so you think the player has to be, so the player who's heading it has to be sort of over 6'6" or something like that to make sure they have the height advantage.
Yeah, I tried 6'4" Kai Havertz because obviously I wanted an Arsenal player for it, and he just doesn't get up there. He doesn't win any fraction of headers. I tried a 6'5" player. He was like, I've got a 6'5" Japanese guy from the A-League teams I've been playing with, and he wins some here and there, but not enough. And then I put a 6'6" player in, and he just started winning every single header, even without like good physical stats, even without aerial fortress, not that it really matters, and even without press proven or precision header, he was just bullying the defender.
Interesting. Yeah, I was noticing that. I remember looking before, and none of the birthday players are actually that tall, interestingly, which is a bit of a shame, because then you'd be like, I mean, obviously you could have applied that rarity Evo to them to do it, but like obviously that'd be a really good way of like creating a player that's excellent for it. But it sounds like from what you're saying, the only play style you need is precision header. So
I actually think precision header plus is like absolutely necessary. Yeah, otherwise you just don't score as many goals. You'll win the headers a lot, but because of the pressure that can, like the contact, you don't score as many. But with precision header plus, it's like the amount of like toxic messages I get afterwards of people like giving me grief, and I'm like, You're not even playing the game. Like, you're playing squad battles against me, mate. Like, let me score my goals like this. But yeah, it's really, really, really overpowered.
And actually, I guess is it just 𝗏𝘓𝑐𝑰 then in terms of players above that height with precision?
Oh no, there's loads.
What? That's
with precision plus, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
And I believe
the tallest two strikers in the game are both Pro League bronzes, and I may have started some new evolutions in the past few weeks, because the idea of having two Pro League bronzes no one's ever heard of before, and especially because one of them's called Fall, which just, I don't know, it just tickles me a little bit. I'm interested to see what they come out as. But yeah, like for 200 centimeter plus strikers, you've got Crouch Onuachu. Actually, the new Forest striker, Lorenzo Luca, is also 200 centimeters. There's 𝘬𝘃𝑠, who has Aerial Fortress Plus, so is fun but completely useless because he's got a playstyle plus that will only trigger in the defensive half. 𝘭𝘪𝘬𝘦, and there's two others. There's one from the Eredivisie, I've forgotten his name, and a Portuguese lad, but I think plays in Poland, I want to say. So there's not many like over 200 centimeters. I will say I've found it slightly different in the because Nep clearly hasn't listened to the gameplay pods for the last few weeks, which is just unbelievable. But I've been harping on about a 4-4-2 with two big men up top, and I've been really enjoying it. I maybe play it slightly different to you. I'm not having the issues you are with getting crosses into strikers, and that's even with Whipped Plus. I found I just need to tap it, and I'm able to hit the strikers. But where I cross the ball from is more important than the power, it seems. Like, if you cross the ball from as far up the pitch as you can, they tend to try and bend a ball in front of them in the box rather than going over the top of them. Once you get kind of to the byline, that's when I feel like they always flip it back post, regardless of how much power you put on. But yeah, I've not been having those issues, and I kind of use them just as much in the build-up as I do to kind of score, because you can just hold L1 and just smash a high long ball up to them, and they will win that header every time. And so if you've got two players up top that you can kind of play the ball down to, hold off, get one of your wingers on a run, and it becomes a very different way of playing, and for your opponent, a very different way of defending. And yeah, the rage messages are delicious.
Yeah, I just want to touch on that you spoke about the outball before, and actually I think all the way back in FIFA 11, I made a video called the outball, because people didn't realize how easy it was when you turned over possession to get, there was always a striker stood in in the space, in the half space, and it was really easy to find them. This year, my outball when I've got Paul on the field at left mid is literally just banging it out to him, because he wins it every single time. And I did play him at striker a little bit, and what Josh says is right. From goal kicks, punt it up to him, knock it down. You've now got a counter attack from your own goal kick. From corners, you've now got an absolute machine in the box that is winning headers consistently. And even if you struggle to win the initial contacts in corners, because I still haven't figured out corners that you actually cross in, even though I concede loads of them, I can't score them. So what I do is I set Paul to back post. I play it short. I just dribble it down the line a bit, flip it to the back post. He wins a header 9 times out of 10, maybe 19 times out of 20. And then when you're under pressure, when you're under the cosh, really under the cosh, just flipping it up there and knowing that they will win it. And this is where I think there's a potential for 𝘵𝘂𝑚 as well. I saw a TikTok the other day, and I haven't done it yet, and I really should have done by now. I really should have tested it out. This guy has 𝘵𝘂𝑚+ on a big man. He's taken one of those bronze players and stuff. He has 𝘵𝘂𝑚+ on him. As he launches the ball up the field, instead of trying to win the ball aerially, he waits until the ball's around the head chest area of the striker, presses 𝘵𝘂𝑚, presses left trigger, and just literally elbows the defender out of the way, gets the ball, turns around, and is in on goal, because that's a 1v1 piece of contact there. And I looked at it, I was like, that's insane. That's literally insane. Anytime he's got a goal kick or the ball in the defensive area, he can transition into a one-on-one with the goalkeeper in 2 touches of the ball. And again, I look at those things and I think, is that really effective against your average Joe because they don't know how to defend it? Is it effective against a top end player? So I looked at his TikTok more. He's in elite division and he's doing this to elite players. And it makes me think, why isn't this more exposed? Why do we see the 𝘭𝘪𝘬𝘦𝘱 and the elasticos and all the skill moves and trickery in the player locks? Why do we never see a bit of punt it up the field, knock it down and score a goal?
Yep. You're so right. And it is interesting. I wonder whether partly it is the scarcity of players who are actually as consistent cards or players in the game. Because from what you're saying, there is this sort of smaller pool of players that can actually do it. Probably if people went out there and got what they thought was a sort of good target striker or header of the ball, actually they're not going to be 6'7" and have precision header plus, because it's basically just big pull. So yeah, maybe it is actually a bit people just haven't got the tools for it, basically. But he's only 20k. I just checked. So
yeah, he's actually doubled. I think I'm logging onto the game now, because I think there's a discrepancy in what people think how many games he's got left. I think he's got 1 more game left on his card. And if they score 3 against Galatasaray, he'll get a 99 face card stat. I believe so anyway. So I just want to go and check the date on him, because I've got him evoed up to a 91. Honestly, he's so insane. I love him so much.
Interesting. On the tracker, it says that he's not made it.
Yeah. So his games should have started February the 27th. Oh no, he has got them all in now. They only scored 1 goal against 18th place 𝘂𝑃𝑆por. That game is in there. Damn. So yeah, never mind. So no 99 stat for him, but I don't think it matters.
The most Yorkshire Turkish team ever created, 𝘂𝑃𝑆por.
𝘂𝑃𝑆por.
Nice. Well, on that, we'll come back with actually we don't quite know yet, but some kind of little closing section, more gameplay chat right after this break. Hello, welcome back after the break. Right. Any kind of final bits of wisdom that you picked up over the course of this cycle you want to share with us before we get into the power ranking?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of bits of wisdom. Not that I take any of it on board my own self, but I've got a lot of wisdom for other people. Yeah, but I was kind of like talking before about something like sometimes the most obvious things are the things you don't see. And I was playing a game like I can't remember what it was. It might have been like Rivals for a random time, but it's definitely one of the Life of Friendlies. And my opponent, every time the ball turned over, his two strikers, his left mid, right mid, and one of his midfielders, they just flooded forwards. And it was overwhelming. And because I hold the ball too long, my defense pushes up a lot. And so the transition, he had like 5-on-3s, 5-on-4s, 5-on-2s constantly. And he just battered me. And I was talking in the video about like, how is he doing it? Like, I've tried counterattack, I've tried balanced, I've tried like short passing, I've tried player runs. And I'm like, this can't be him. He's not sitting there like spamming his L1 to make these guys go on player ones. It's impossible. And one of my viewers just said, he's just got his players on attack. And I was like, wait, it can't be that simple. So I put instead of having playmaker balanced, I switched to playmaker attack. Instead of having advanced forward support, I put it to advanced forward attack with another advanced forward attack. Instead of having inside forward balanced, I set inside forward attack. And instead of having winger balanced, I set winger attack. And in my head, I want it balanced because I want them to be there for options to pass so that I can move the ball up the field. But I switched them to attack, so I had 5 attacking players. And when I turned over the possession, lo and behold, they just flood forwards. And I'm like, this is insane, because as long as I can get that first pass up to them, I've got like now a massive advantage in the attack. And it just really helped score a lot of goals. Like the amount of output that I got from goal scoring opportunities was way higher. I concede a lot more because of it, but I score a lot more because of it. And I think everyone should try it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really true. I think the only drawback I've found when I've done that with certain players, like certainly like wide players, is that they just don't help as much defensively, which is good. Like that's how it should work, right? There should be a trade-off, and I guess like maybe they aren't quite as like clever in their movement in the build-up. But to be honest, I mean, obviously it's a perfectly valid way of playing on the counter. Like, and if you're going to do that, which a lot of people do that, you might as well take full advantage by using the appropriate roles. And I think it's something that it's the classic thing of people just taking tactics codes from they've seen somewhere and they've just copied a pro's tactics. And obviously, and it's actually quite unlikely that a pro would have all their players on attack, because they do a lot more manual movement or kind of like triggering of runs and all that kind of stuff. They basically want maximum defensive support because they can't control all the players defensively, whereas you can kind of do more of that in attack, kind of very risk averse, which listeners you don't have to do that. So it's important to say. Before we move on to the power ranking, Josh, you got anything to add particularly, or should we crack on with power rankings?
Mainly just like start experimenting with tactics a little bit more. Like the difference between counter and short passing is massive, especially on that turnover thing. Like I've been a short passing truther, but moving to counter, suddenly you realize you can counter. It is Ron Seal in some extent. So I think a lot of people keep it unbalanced as well, but have a play around. And I think the one thing I kind of want to get to is like try and have fun. Like however that is for you. If that's winning every game, then sure, like go after the meta and do everything like that. But if having fun is playing in a slightly different way or playing a specific way, then try and make that as effective as possible, because that's what you're going to get the most out of.
Nice. And right, let's move on just to end the podcast. Do the playstyle power rankings. We're not going to have time to do Josh and I, but we'll get Nep's power ranking before we finish up, and then we'll do ours on the supporter gameplay episode next week. This is genuinely that we've run out of time. I'm not just trying to push people to go support the pod, but if you'd like to, please do. You can just search support for weekly or follow the link in the description. It's just £3 a month. You get an extra podcast every single week. But yes, we're going to do winger essentially. We did talk a little bit about this before. I mean, potentially if you have more of a traditional winger, you might want slightly different play styles than if you have sort of an inside forward. And obviously, if you're just playing the crossing meta, then I guess that's maybe another different type of winger. So we'll let you kind of like pick, I guess, which one you'd choose and I guess what role you'd go for between, say, winger, inside forward, etc. So yeah. Let's go through it, and we're going to do 3 playstyle pluses this week in preparation for potentially moving up to 3 in the near future, and then we'll do 9 base playstyles as well. So there's quite a lot of playstyles to pick from, and if you can kind of like
select them all, then
yeah, I was going to say that's almost all of them. But if you can kind of slightly prioritize, I suppose that's helpful. So yeah.
So I really don't use inside forward much. I haven't got on with it at all this year as a whole, and I think largely because I play two strikers, it just it gets a bit occupied in the box with it. So I'll be going for a winger, but more of a creative kind of like, I really like a right-footed left winger or a left-footed right winger to cut inside and finesse, or to play the ball inside and then maybe a little 1-2 to receive the ball back and be on the end there. So with that in mind, it is more of a finisher than a creator, but not as an inside forward. And so with that, like, finesse shot plus is just up there as number one flat out. I also think incisive pass plus is an absolute must for passing. And then since we're going for a third playstyle plus, my third playstyle plus would probably be rapid plus this time, because even though I don't personally utilize rapid as well as others do, I feel the value of it quite often. For base playstyles, pinged, ticky, whipped, and long ball and inventive. I probably, if we're going for 9, I think the passing playstyles have got to all be there, right? I know EA made that slight adjustment for the changes. If you want me to order them as well, I would probably go pinged, ticky, inventive, long ball, whipped.
Interesting. Long ball, is that sort of to play through balls in behind to the strikers, or how do you use that?
I've like, so with the big man method I was using, having like that long ball, I was switching the ball sometimes with my right mid to pull at left mid before it was in the crossing zone. So it took long ball as the passing play style to get it over. And like, you can notice the difference significantly of the speed and accuracy of a long ball pass when somebody's got the play style versus when they haven't. So I think it's really valuable for getting shifting the ball across. So they would be my first. I think passing play styles are just so valuable. Yeah, even though EA have made that change for stats, and like, you can feel it a bit, I feel, but I think passing play styles are like just too good. I would then go for technical, quick step. What have we got there? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I know a lot. I know a lot of people love first touch. I will get to why I don't like first touch in a moment. So my next pickup would be press proven, and I actually wanted to talk about this a little bit more, but I know we're pressed for time.
Oh, that's right.
Josh spoke on press proven before, and shielding. I think shielding is wildly underrated this year, because the way people press you, if you just hold shield, not as enforcer, but just hold left trigger to shield, when they press you, they will end the wrong side of you, and you'll just turn around without actually doing anything. And it's a really good way to beat the press, and press proven is massively helpful for that. And then the last one that I would use would probably be low driven. Just because, like I say, I like to get in. I do like to have shooting opportunities with the wingers. And so the reason why I won't take first touch is because I think the play style is broken, but not in a good way. I literally think it doesn't work or causes the adverse effect as to what it's supposed to, especially noticeable on first touch plus. I focused a lot on first touch at the start of the game cycle, and when those icons came as well, I used like 𝗬𝗪𝘅 icon who's got first touch plus, and the icon will pop up on his head as he miscontrolled the ball over and over and over. And then playing clubs, like competitive clubs, people like went out of their way to not put first touch on because it was broken. Like the ball didn't work as intended. So with the passing play styles, I think ping pass, the receiver of the ball has a better touch of receiving the pass. So if you've got ping pass on all of your midfielders, or just passing play styles in general, I think the receivers don't need first touch, even if it worked, which I don't think it does.
Interesting. That is fascinating, because I've been using first touch plus with. I mean, it might depend on the player and their maybe their stats and ball control and stuff, and because I've been using a kind of evolved player who's like very, very good and agile on the ball, and with first touch plus, sometimes like if I do the right bumper flick, so like RB then flick the right stick, it will just like completely kill the defender and you go past them. But I haven't really noticed. Maybe there is a bit of like inconsistency in terms of if you don't do that, maybe when you receive the ball, it is less consistent in some way. But not something I've massively noticed. But that being said, I maybe wouldn't have first touch super high for a winger anyway. Like I think you're not receiving it under as much pressure a lot of the time, unless it's that situation where you're kind of like wanting to kind of receive it on the run and then shoot. Maybe that's where it would be more useful. But like generally, not. I wouldn't say it's as high as some other things. But yeah, it's interesting. We'll get into ours, Josh. In the.
I also didn't have first touch, but I'm fascinated by the opinion that it's broken in a bad way, because we've had a lot of like love first touch plus coming in, so that's interesting.
Well, we'll leave that cliffhanger in terms of our own choices for the winger position until next week. But yes, if you have any thoughts, I think we're going to do a bit more of a kind of general discussion week in terms of content, and obviously we'll cover what's to come this weekend, which I think everything seems to be pointing towards Trophy Titans. Is that right? So we'll discuss that, but also maybe get into a broader discussion about FC26 and content, etc. Nep, great to have you back on the Gameplay Pod. Really appreciate your advice and opinions. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's good to talk about the game sometimes. I've learned a lot. Well, I'm now looking at my team thinking I'm going to be rebuilding my team after this and taking some of these points on board and becoming marginally better and still getting angry at the game, So.
Yep, we shall see. Thank you very much as well to Josh. Good to have you on.
Yeah, no, it's a good episode. Fellow big man meta truther on this. It's nice to not feel alone.
Yeah, indeed. And actually, talking about the next episode, if you're catching this podcast on YouTube or on Patreon, wherever, generally you can drop a comment. So do drop a comment in terms of your thoughts on content this cycle, maybe how things are going in terms of all the different live events and stuff like that, how you feel about that, and we'll aim to bring that in for the next episode. While you're there, subscribe, drop a like, etc., helps the podcast out. And of course, as I said earlier, if you want to support the pod to keep it going, then you can do so over on Patreon. Just search Support FUT Weekly, follow the link in the description of this podcast. And a huge thank you, of course, to all you supporters keeping the podcast going. It is greatly appreciated. And a big thank you to those icon patrons:
Dave B, Darren W, Hugh J, Rob W, Josh R, Ralph, Brian, Michael B, Adam R, Make B, Michael H, Rob S, Michael K, Neil P, Jake S, Tom B, Alex M, Damon H, L, James B, Sam K, The Shirt Locker, Lee A, Chris G, Mark M, Dom P, Rob P, Roger D, Waterman, Also Ran, and Juicy. Plus a special thanks to Luke M, Dave B, Hugh J, Tom M, Darren W, and Pato Foot for advice and production assistance. Before I leave you, just one more thing to add though. Ultimate Team is a bit like life really. It has its many ups and downs. If you're having a few more downs than ups in real life in these more difficult times, then please don't feel that you're alone or need to struggle on without taking action. If you go to thecalmzone.net, there's loads of resources, advice, support, or even just a friendly chat for anyone who needs it. If it sounds like it could help you, then head over to thecalmzone.net. And for now, have a good one, and I'll catch you on the next podcast.